morning and welcome back to Moscow. It is our last day of action, day 8 in the Big Brother house here in the Dynamo part of the city. Charlie Bosco and Team USA member Bobby Taft-Pittman alongside me. And we've got the Youth B lead semi-final. Their final is coming up today at 3 p.m. in about 6 hours' time. They've just finished their observation. They're heading back in and we await the first climbers. And Bobby, we were down the front. We had a chat with chief lead route setter here, Adam Pustelnik.
Yep.
Got to bed at 2:30, by the way, last night. Adam having got to bed at 4 the night before, so that's how hard the route setters work. And they've put on quite a show. Both routes look different, but in quite different ways. Let's talk about the women's route first.
Okay, so the women's route seems pretty burly for a women's route. They have some fairly big slopers that women aren't really used to grabbing. And I mean, I think that they'll definitely have some problems with it. The upper half seems a lot easier for them, not for anybody with big hands, but
It's definitely a route designed for Youth B females.
definitely. The crimps seem fairly small, but we were told that they were pretty in-cut. There's a big sloper at the end that they're gonna have to kind of wrestle with that to get to the last hold, but I think that they're gonna have a lot of fun on this route.
The men's route is over to the left as we see the women's start list coming up. So the women are on the right. They're climbing just to the right of the big star, which is kind of our big landmark on the lead wall here in Moscow, and the men are over to the left. You might just be able to see their route. We'll see it again in a second. Here's the men's start list, 26 men and 26 women through, no ties. Luckily in 26th place, so we've got the regulation 26 on both sides, and they're looking for one of the 8 finals places in both sides. And it's, I think, the earliest start we've had here in Moscow. That seems to be reflected in the crowd. Come on, Muscovites, climbing fans, where are you? Let's get this arena filled up again. And men are over on the left, you can see, and purple holds. And an interesting route for the men as well. Quite a lot of moves condensed into not much wall.
Yes. It seems that they're snaked back and forth a little bit. There's a lot of crosses, and the holds are fairly small for for the men. But we were told that there's a really nice height where you can't really be too short but too tall. They put a lot of feet holds on it because they know how long, how big of a difference these climbers have in height.
Yeah, we talked about this. Of all the categories, this is Youth B, which we've been watching these climbers for 8 days now. But if this is your first time joining us in Moscow, Youth B is the youngest age category here. It's climbers born in 2003 and 2004. And there's probably the biggest discrepancy in height and physical maturity of all the categories.
Yes, 100%. Some of the kids have kind of started going through puberty, and some haven't even started, and they won't start for a year or two. And you'll have some kids that are taller than me and have big muscles, and then you'll have kids like Colin Duffy, where he's not very tall, but he has very good power and very good endurance that makes up for it.
I think that's one of the biggest problems facing the route setters, is that not only have you got probably the biggest discrepancy of any youth category in terms of height, but also physical attributes. Some of them, as you say, are really small, not fully developed yet physically, and they've got amazing endurance. Some of them are huge and incredibly powerful, so you're setting for such a different range of shapes and sizes. You see that in adult setting as well, of course. You've got climbers of all sorts of shapes and sizes, but it's very pronounced in this Youth B category.
Yes, they have a challenge when they're setting for these climbers.
Yeah, the route setting team, as I mentioned earlier, put in a couple of pretty big shifts here on the lead wall. 2:30 last night, apparently they finally left the venue, and that was after 4 the night before. So they've been putting in the hours, and this is their last day. It's our last day of competition here in Moscow. day 8, as I say. It's been action-packed. We've had 3 categories competing in 3 disciplines.
Yep. We've been very tired as climbers and cheerleaders trying to trying to cheer for our climbers to do well.
So we're just awaiting the arrival of the climbers. Last night we had a problem with the big lights in the arena here. No sign of that today, luckily. And I think we're about to get underway. I think that's the B-layers waiting for their climber to come out. Vivian Fumo of Switzerland now, and Carmen Contreras of Chile will be the first climbers out. There is Vivian climbing on the men's route, left-hand side of the wall, and the women, as they seem to have been for much of this lead program, climbing just to the right of the Death Star, right in the middle of the wall. Not my nickname for the star, by the way. That was what the route setters refer to it as, but it is the big landmark here. There it is, right in the middle of the wall. And we can see Carmen underway on the women's route. So, as I say, 26 men, 26 women to come, and they're gunning for 8 spots in the final. In your home country, the USA, well represented here.
100%. We have a lot of very strong climbers that have trained really hard to get here, and we actually don't have any funding from our federation, so our parents have put in a lot of work as well trying to get us out here. But these routes have been very, very, very well set, in my opinion.
Yeah, we were chatting off air. You've been very impressed with the standard of the lead setting.
Okay, so the climbs have been both powerful and very pumpy, but they're not too pumpy. The holds are fairly good, but when it comes to trying to do them all, like all the moves in succession, you just get very, very bicep pumped, which it's not something that we're very used to.
Slightly committed move there for Vivian Fumo. Just entering the steepest section of the Moscow wall, and we lose him just popping up. That was one of the first moves that the route setting team said might cause a few problems. Got to read both these routes right. So he's okay up with the right hand. Let's see where he went wrong. He got the clip done. I wonder if he might have fallen in the process of clipping. That was his left foot that popped. So Carmen Contreras is on her own on the Moscow wall. Cedric Luc Miel of Germany out next. Chile also a team that are beginning to produce a few good climbers. Ecuador the same. And Argentina as well. So South America increasingly well represented, particularly in youth competitions and more at the World Cups as well.
Yeah, the Ecuadorians have been getting very, very fast in speed.
Yeah, they seem to have a couple of really strong speed climbers. Carlos Grania, one of them. And here is Cedric. Team Germany as strong as ever. Will be in Germany for the semi-final and final of the last Boulder World Cup of the season in Munich in just over 48 hours time. And we have one of their athletes on the wall. Scores wise coming into this final, I said we don't have any ties for 26th place, hence us just having the regulation 26 climbers. We do have a few ties higher up the order. On the men's side we had 4 climbers, Colin Duffy, Paul Jemps, Thomas Podlan and Xander Waller of the USA, who got 4 tops in yesterday's qualifying round, so a tie that we could do with breaking if at all possible in today's semi-final. And on the women's side, Natsuki Tani and Yutong Tsang, both names I'm sure you remember from the excellent Youth B bouldering final. They also got 2 tops each on the women's side. So a few ties that we'd like to break, which it's always good if we can separate the climbers in the semi-final round, and ideally the final as well. And this is the move out left where we lost Vivian. Cedric, no problem. And Just seeing Carmen Contreras no longer on the wall, and judging by the swinging quick draw, we lost her just entering the steepest section. 17 plus for her.
Yeah, this is one of the best examples. This B kid kind of looks like a man, and we don't. Not a lot of our B kids are as tall or nearly as muscular as this man right here.
Yeah, just 15 years old, Cedric, and that's a very good effort early on in the semi-final. Climbers coming, as they do in the World Cups, in reverse order, so theoretically we've got the strongest climbers coming out last, but Cedric had a pretty good go at making his way onto the head wall. Yeah, and as you say, that's a good example of the discrepancy in shapes and sizes in this age group. Elle McDonald now of the USA.
She is very, very strong.
Is she a climber you trained with much?
No, I haven't trained with a lot of the younger kids, but I've watched her at our national competitions, and I watched her in qualies yesterday, and she's just put on an amazing showing.
Yeah, through to the semi-final. As I say, it was a very good day for the USA in their qualifiers yesterday. They were very, very well represented here. 3 men in the lead in the men's semi-final, and 2 in the women's. Excuse me, 3 in the women's as well. So, yeah, 6 climbers through, and Evgeny Kuzin just made a route reading mistake. The bottom section of this men's route is quite complicated. There's a lot of different holes. There's a lot of holes crammed in, moves crammed in into a very small space. And the right hand popped. It didn't look, we couldn't see it from front on, didn't quite look like the right method perhaps. That's a shame for him. Jasper van Melderen of Belgium will be climbing next on the men's route. Follow Elle on the women's as she enters a really, really steep section of the wall. And she's heading out to the left now. The hole she's heading for, that one with the dimples that looks a bit like a golf ball, is it's kind of an undercling, and again, lose her relatively low down. Was that perhaps a route reading error? We'll try and get a replay. Here we go. Did that right hand ever get fully solid? Perhaps not.
Yeah, no, it looked like it just popped off. Looked like she dry fired a little bit. She was kind of holding her hand a little bit. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, that was. It's always nasty to fall off a tiny hole like that when you're not expecting to. Sadly, I think those were tears of disappointment. That's a shame for her, but when you're in Youth B, you do at least have plenty of chances to try again. 4 more Youth World Championships potentially for Elle should she want to compete in them. But still, disappointment. So, Jasper van Melderen of Belgium now on the wall. 4th of 26 male climbers out. This is a complicated, slightly convoluted lower section of the men's route we talked about. Sniva Over Ida of Norway, currently on the wall, just started out. Climbing pretty quickly, she's already up to the star.
Yeah, this is one of the first sections that I was pretty sure that they were going to have some problems with those slopers.
The routes apparently were modified last night in the early hours of the morning, just to perhaps bring the level down slightly. I think the route setters felt they could probably afford to make the routes ever so slightly easier. So much judgment involved, of course. And Jasper again, just struggling perhaps with the reading. Looked like he was kind of caught with a bit of indecision there. So he looked pretty solid on the left hand, was able to clip from there. I think this was quite a bit lower down. That was on his very first few moves. Bit of a strange one. Looked in a reasonably comfortable position, but it committed his weight up to that left hand and seemed to back out of it slightly. Sunniva now onto the crimps, and she pops off in the steepest section of the wall. So far on the women's route, climbers getting progressively higher, but nobody yet heading towards the head wall. It's really hard to tell early on in a lead semi-final exactly what will be required for the final. But given that each successive climber has made more and more progress, you fear for Sunniva that might perhaps not be enough.
Yeah, those holds are fairly good, but because of that angle of the wall, it's very hard to keep your hips in to get the most out of them.
Jan Gerber now of Poland. Fifth climber out. Stephanie Lettner. We've seen Sandra Lettner in action. Time now for Stephanie. Will be climbing on the women's route. There she is, down and right of the star. And I'm pleased to see the venue beginning to fill up. Have pretty healthy crowds all week, but Muscovite climbing fans, as I say, obviously not a big fan of the 9 AM start. They're not the only ones. A lot of coffee being drunk in the venue this morning, and I think that was Jan Gerber being spat off the men's route.
A lot of these routes seem very low percentage.
Yeah, it's a good point, yeah. Not many certain moves.
Not at all.
We've seen quite a few, yeah, that is Jan Gerber back on the mats. We've seen quite a few, I'll resume in a second. Let's have a look where we lost him. Right foot just popped as he went up. Yeah, we've seen quite a few kind of traditional resistance style moves on the lead wall. Bit of a shift in style today. Stephanie Leitner now. Needs to figure out this move. This is where we lost Elle. It's a reasonably good hold, that golf ball one, but you've got to get it in exactly the right spot. It's just not very comfortable to hold, because really the best way to hold it is with your body almost horizontally pulling away from it. It'll actually feel a bit comfy the higher she gets on it, but she's got to commit now with the right hand. Perhaps an option there to go with the left.
She had it in the right spot, right below the bolt hole is the best part on the hold, really.
Yeah. And as I say, with the right, look like maybe going out left and grabbing that black pinch might be the way to go.
I think that's what the route setters were talking about, that you're supposed to cross up with the right and then match, or if you feel comfortable enough with the right hand on the golf ball that you can bump up with the left.
Ilya Minyakin, hitter of the Ukraine, and Marketa Yanasova of the Czech Republic will be the next climber. So it's Eastern Europe all over the wall in just a second. And then Tanner Bauer, our first male USA climber. Apologies, I miscounted. We've got 4 Americans in the male semi-final.
We do have some strong kids.
You'll have to excuse me. Day 8 in the Moscow Big Brother house. Even my counting's failing now. So he's got that long quick draw clipped as he enters the steepest section. Now popping out left has caused a few problems already. These moves all quite tough, and you can see already at this early stage having to fight quite hard, and you've got to get high on that volume to find the screw on. He's done well there. Not the tallest climber in this semi-final, but he found a method that worked for him. And you can see the elbows are out, the pump beginning to kick in. He could do with trying to recover some energy if at all possible, but it's not really the section to do that. I don't think there's any way of manufacturing a rest for quite a few moves. He's heading up to another screw on. You can just about see them. And again, tries to bring the left hand across, and we lose him. You could see he was getting tired a few moves out, but he read the route pretty well. This was him entering the steep section.
Yeah, it really looked like he was fighting. And I love to see that with climbers, when you can tell that they're tired, but they just don't give up.
Marketa Yanasova now of the Czech Republic is out on the wall. And we await Tanner Bauer of the USA, 7th climber onto the men's route. The semi-final going by pretty quickly. We must have had our first climber out. So I didn't look at my watch, around 10 past 9. It's 25 past now, so we've only had about 15 minutes, but the climbers coming and going pretty quickly. It's a short wall here in Moscow, 13.5 meters. So compared to some of the routes we've seen in the World Cup, I think it was in Arco we had a 62 move lead route. I think it was for the women in the final perhaps, someone might correct me on Twitter, but we have had a 62 move route on the live stream this year. They're more in the 35 to 40 range here. And we've seen a series of climbers struggling with these moves. So you've got to be really precise. If your feet cut loose at this stage, that would be game over. So you've got to be really sure of every move. Tanner Bauer now, the USA. Climbing on the men's route.
Is it just me, but when I watch any type of climbing, especially competitions, my hands just sweat.
I'm beginning to train mine to just sweat at the most important moments. But yeah, at the end, at the end of the final, I look like I've just competed. Especially watching your compatriot, I'd imagine.
100%. I just want him to do well.
USA do seem to be churning out a lot of youth, really promising youth climbers, particularly in this youngest category. Could you hazard a guess as to why that might be? Have we seen an improvement in the quality and number of facilities?
Well, we have gotten a lot of new, really nice facilities going up everywhere, but the B kids are just super, super competitive, and they're all friends, but
lose Marketa just slapping it with the right hand.
They're all friends, but they just want to win, and it's causing them to train super, super hard, and everyone's just fighting, like gunning for the top, and they're pushing the level of climbing, especially for their age.
Let's just have a look how we lost it. It was a slap it with the right hand, yeah. She was looking tired at that stage and perhaps didn't get quite far enough to find the real perfect spot at that volume. Tanner now in what is a pretty uncomfortable set of moves. The reading's relatively straightforward, but they just keep coming. It looks like he's got a tiny bit left here. You can see in his face, not grimacing too much. And he's about to set a new high point. He's the closest anyone's come yet to getting themselves established on the head wall. I think he'd be well advised to get this move done before he clips, and I think that's what he's going to do. And you can just see as he's stabbed out right there. After the moves that come below it, that feels a really tough move. You end up in a kind of gymnastic-style iron cross.
Very shouldery.
Just having a look. So it was this stab out. It looked, I mean, he looked back to the left, which would suggest he kind of felt that he had it already. Michaela Smetanova of Czech Republic on the wall now. Just going back to your point about the youth B climbers, it's a really interesting point. I know we're watching competition climbing, but climbing for most people is not a competitive activity, and a lot of people that get into it and then come to competitions later. It's really interesting to hear that these youth B climbers are competitive. They've got that urge to win, which is what they're going to need to succeed.
That's the only thing that they would have to do to succeed. The amount of training that these kids put in, I just can't wait to see till like when they're juniors and these routes are 9A like for competitions because a lot of these kids have already climbed. I'm not really sure I'm pretty sure I know they've climbed like V13 and I'm not sure what the Europeans grading is for that, but
They're pretty strong.
they're very strong.
We can't have a grade debate. We'll be here all day. Slib Sokovoy now of the Ukraine climbing. He's the 8th climber out, as ever, in a lead semi-final. After 13 climbers, we'll have a cleaning break. Always nice if we can get the choreography right so that there's no time at which we have an empty wall. And our second Czech climber in a row, Michaela Smetanova. Second of 2 Norwegian females to be out after her, Emma Stover, who you might remember from the bouldering. And Halib of the Ukraine. Getting himself established on the lower section of the route. And we just panned out in time to see Michaela falling. Let's have a look what the method was. Again, this golf ball, or the move up to the golf ball, causing problems. All 3 effectively of the moves in that section have been causing climbers problems, and it was a slap up. You've got to be quite specific with that hold. It is pretty good, provided you can hit the perfect spot.
I think it's hard because the hold that you're going from is not the best.
Here she comes, Emma Stover, just had it introduced to the crowd. Norway, a country blessed with some pretty incredible climbing, not always blessed, I might add, having been there a few times with the best weather, but when it's dry it's pretty special. Flip now onto the quarter star on the left hand side of the wall, which has been a feature of most of the men's routes so far here in Moscow. And he just needs to figure out how to read this. Slapping out left makes it a very powerful way of doing it. We saw Tanner Bauer read that section really nicely earlier, but Lib just got himself in a position where the only way to do that move was super powerfully. You could tell he was getting tired as well. And we lose him on the star. Here is Emma, our chief route setter on the lead. Adam Pustelnik is now a resident of Oslo. Originally hails from Poland, but he now lives in the same country as Emma. Apparently they've had a great summer in Norway, which, as I say, take my word for it, is not always the case. Hot and sunny for a couple of months over there.
Yeah, coming from Florida.
I think if you move to Florida, from Florida to Norway, you might find the amount of rain increasing slightly.
Oh, I don't know. During the summer, it rains for about 2 to 3 hours every single day.
Really?
Every single day.
At the same time?
Yep, the same time every day. And, I mean, it may fluctuate from, like, either 2 to 5 or 3 to 6, but we get thunder and lightning storms every single day. And owning a motorcycle, which I do, you kind of got to time it just right to where you're arriving and leaving right before and right after the rain.
I didn't know that. Been to a dozen or so states, but never to Florida. I'll remember that. You do need a waterproof in Florida. So Emma's pretty high on the women's route, in the middle of the star. Second Belgian man out, Hannes van Duysen. There he is. Again, that is Emma back down on the mats. Not sure where we lost her. Just beginning to have a look at the scores. We've got a pretty good spread on the men's side. And on the women's, it's around that 17 plus 18 area, which is around where Emma was. Oh, and her right foot put a heel hook. Here's Hannah's lower section of the men's route. So here comes Indiana Chapman. Saw her in the bouldering final a couple of days ago.
She's kind of a beast.
Yes, she is. No, she went really well in the bouldering. Really strong climber. Perhaps Hannah's just changing his method slightly. We talked about the discrepancy in size and shape and development of the Youth B climbers. Hannah's definitely one of the smaller climbers. You can see the difference between him and, say, Cedric Luc Miele, for example, who we saw earlier. Quite extraordinary. Interestingly, Adam Postelnik was saying that actually the route is probably easier for the really small or the really tall. Let's just focus on that for a second. I'll hold that thought.
Yeah, he looks like he's fighting, but he's getting it done. Oh,
Just went for the match. And yeah, as you said, he suddenly looked tired. Kind of came on quite quickly, almost seemed to catch him by surprise. Yeah, Adam Postelnik was saying that for the very small and the very tall, the route is okay, but mid-height, so Adam, our chief route setter, is 166 centimetres, he said.
yes.
Which is about 5'5", 5'6" in old terms?
I
in
think
Imperial.
so. I think so.
So for people that are kind of short-ish, like Adam, it's pretty tricky. But if you're really short or really tall, there are just ways to do the moves. So quite an interesting feature of the route. We tend to think that over the course of a route it evens itself out, but there's pretty different methods for the very tall or the very small, but both equally easy. And as I say, if you're mid-height on the men's route, it's probably the worst of all. Can't quite use the short person beater, and you can't quite use the tall person method either.
So you're kind of just stuck a little bit.
Here's Indiana. She's now entering this section that's caused so many problems. Across this slopey volume, then across to the golf ball. It's all Canada on the wall right now. Victor Baudrond. He's the 10th climber out, so we've got 3 more on the men's side before our clean break. Indiana Chapman, we didn't see her negotiating it, but obviously through the golf ball section reasonably well. And I think, yeah, that's the way you do it. You get up to that black pinch first before you come out to the right. Now slapping it with the right hand. Got to be super accurate on that move, and she was. Really found the perfect point on that hold. This is impressive stuff from Indiana Chapman. We've seen a lot of climbers spat off on these moves, and she's got them all spot on so far.
That was a really nice heel hook.
Yeah, and looked very solid. We've seen climbers have that heel hook pop as well. Indiana Chapman putting in a strong performance there. You can see she's just beginning to move that bit quicker. Fatigued, just beginning to become an issue, and as she slapped out right, we lost her just before the entrance to the head wall. Pretty sure that will be the lead for Indiana. It's a while since we saw Marketa Ianasova, who currently holds the lead.
The Canadians have been getting very strong as well.
Yeah, Victor, on moves that have looked absolutely desperate for a lot of climbers, looked totally solid. If people are watching live from Canada, that is a good effort because it must be horrible o'clock.
Yes. It depends on. It should be like
If you're on the west, it might be
yeah.
okay. Yeah. No, so it's probably a late night rather than an early start if you're watching us in Canada. So Victor now lining up the move out to the right. And he's managed to stick it.
Got that little drop knee there.
And he was just beginning to get himself established on the head wall. He didn't give much away. He looked smooth and controlled all the way. Perhaps one of those climbers that should be playing poker. Doesn't give you anything. Doesn't give you any information. He's put himself in the lead, 30 plus. That's the closest anyone's come to really having a good look at that head wall.
Yeah, the route setters were saying that the head wall was when it kind of turned on a little bit.
Yeah, nobody's managed to get there yet, so interesting to see as the semi-final progresses whether the route setter's got the level right. Route setting is already the hardest job at the IFSC. Doing it for climbers of this age makes it even harder. Lucy Watillon, who we also saw in the bouldering on the live stream earlier in the week. Creeping away up that star on the men's side. And a Batikel of Slovenia. Apologies to all our Slovenian listeners. I seem to get a particularly hard time for my Slovenian pronunciation. And I suspect I'll get a bit more stick for that one. I'm trying. So Lucy Watillon is the 9th climber on the women's side of things. Naï Maignan of France will follow her out. Following Anne out will be Ray Kawamata, the gold medalist in the bouldering. Top 4 boulders, you might remember, in the final 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, when walking out, the only way to tell how far the person before you got is you look at how many draws are still swinging. And that's kind of a okay gauge as to where you think you might need to get.
Do you pay much attention to where other people have got? Is that a bit of a dangerous road to go down? Or can you just not help it?
You just can't. I mean, me personally, I can't help it. It's kind of dangerous because you're like, oh, I need to get to here, but in my eyes, it shows that the route's doable, that I know that it's possible to get up to here because the person before me did it, and I know that I'm just as strong as the person that climbed before me, so I should be able to get to here, and that's, for me, it kind of helps a little bit, but for a lot of climbers, it just gets in their head, and they just freak out about where they've gotten.
Yeah, it's interesting. We hear phrases like control the controllables, but you can't help but look what other people are doing. Lucy Watillon, she didn't look especially comfortable on the lower section of the route, but she's had a good go through that steep section, and it was just that slap up. She was just a bit short on it, I think. I think she read it correctly. It looked like she never quite decided what she wanted to do with that right hand, and then her right foot, then her right hand caught on the rope as she went up. She went underneath the rope. So, pretty decent separation of climbers on the men's side. Let's have a look how that one ended. Again, it's just heading up to the top of that star. A lot of climbers coming down looking pretty frustrated. I've had the impression with quite a few people coming down that they feel like they've made a mistake. They haven't quite given everything they had.
Yes. That's kind of what it is in a lot of competitions, because you don't know what the holds are. You don't know how other people have done as well. So when you're climbing and you feel like you could do better, even if you're in first place, you don't know that. and you want to do as well as you can.
Here's Ray Kawamata, the bouldering champion. He was untouched in that bouldering final. You might remember 4 tops, nobody else could do that. Would be a pretty extraordinary double if he could pull it off. We saw his compatriot Meiichi Narasaki do it last night. Meiichi Narasaki, the bouldering and lead champion. And Nai Mignon here is so far looking pretty composed. She's just entering the section of the route that's caused a lot of problems though out to that golf ball. And it's not only getting through that section, it's getting through it with some energy left, because you've got some pretty committing and pretty burly moves above. So this next section, even if she gets through it, how she gets through it could be crucial.
Yeah, that little snake is just, it's not very good on that angle of wall.
Got to be accurate here with the move out left. Absolutely no problems there. Slight fiddle with the clip, that's the last thing you need, although she has got, by the looks of it, the good part of that golf ball hold. Here's Ray Kawamata, 12th climber out, the men's semi-final. Absolutely rocketing by.
Yeah, there's blocker holds inside of those crimps, and that's why they're not grabbing the good part if you can't see them.
And Nai Mignon. Let's have a look where this ended. She went up with the right hand. And we've seen that happen already to climbers today, where that right heel hook popped. She did really well to get her feet back on. Just threw her slightly. Here's Ray. Climbing 12th in the semi-final, having qualified 14th. But he's absolutely in the running for a place in the finals. I have to say it'd be a surprise if he didn't make the finals. Not his day in the qualifiers, but even so. Not the most comfortable position from which to clip that left-hand pinch. Commits with the right hand. He looks like he's on the limit here, Ray Kawamata. He's really, really having to scrap for these moves. Now he approaches the head wall. And that slap up with the right hand finally does it for him. There's 3 or 4 moves before that where he looked like he was absolutely on his limit.
That next hole that he was going up to, that volume, the route setters were saying that they could get a short little shake out there, but either those climbers are very strong or my hands are just a little bit too big for those crimps, but I don't think that I could shake out on those holds.
Probably a bit of both. Nikola Kralikova now of the Czech Republic, the 3rd Czech climber out on the women's side, the 3rd and final one we're going to see in the semi-final today. Hannah Kudo and Julia Lotz, the 2 climbers still to come before the cleaning break on the women's side. Andrei Slezak of the Czech Republic climbing 13th. And yeah, 2 Czech climbers in the men's semi-final, both of them climbing one after the other, albeit separated by the cleaning break. Seem to produce a lot of good Czech climbers as well.
Yeah, I don't know what they feed them.
Funny to think as well, because we still think of Adam Ondra as absolutely current, still a relatively young climber, but these climbers will have grown up with him as their hero, and you can't fail to be inspired by that.
I mean, I think Adam's kind of everyone's hero.
He's definitely mine.
Yeah, it definitely looked like he should have got his right foot up to make that move. Get a little bit more height.
Didn't seem too bothered about it, did Ray Kawamata? Lowered down, still smiling. Looked like he's still having fun.
For sure.
That leaves him in 4th place as it stands. over on the women's side, highest score is a 25 plus. That's still Indiana Chapman. Looking how purely physical but also hard to read and technical this women's route is. Indiana Chapman, having climbed 8th in the semi-final, could well have done enough for a place in the final. It's a very tricky route, this women's route. Lots of opportunities to be spat off when you're not expecting it. We could see a few surprise results a bit later on. So Indiana Chapman should be down the front of the wall now, I'd imagine. And she holds the high point. Let's see how long it stands for.
Yeah, these holes get pretty gross pretty quickly when it comes to the chalk. Kind of gets caked on a little bit.
Yeah, the cleaning break coming up immediately after this on the men's route. And perhaps a slight right route reading error there from Andre. Went up with the left hand, and as I seem to have said, when pretty much everyone's lowered off, frustration ruling. So he tried the cross through the right hand. It's a very powerful way of doing that move, and if you're not completely accurate with that left hand, you're in a spot of trouble. So now we'll have the cleaning break on the men's side. They'll only have to clean up to the bottom of the head wall. Nobody yet had a really good go at piercing that head wall. I think the choreography should be about right. I don't think there'll be any stage. We've got an empty wall. Nicola now on the star. So she's got the two very bright orange volumes, the slightly newer looking ones. And she just went up with the left hand. And again, frustrated. Well, frustration, certainly as far as most of the climber reactions have gone, seems to be the word to summarise the first half of this semi-final.
She definitely should have gotten her left foot up onto the star so she could rock over.
Yeah, kind of. It's a very hard way to do that move because you're simultaneously trying to push your left knee down while sending your left hand up. Hanakudo now of Japan is on the women's route, and the men's route getting a clean from our route setting team. And you're about to, Bobby, you're just about to move to Boulder and become a coach at ABC. What sort of age group will you be coaching? Will you be able to get your hands on coaching some of these athletes?
Not quite yet. I'm only 18, and a lot of these kids are only a few years younger than I am. So I think I need a lot more experience in the terms of coaching. I mean, I have a good amount of experience climbing, but coaching and climbing are fairly different when it comes to being able to motivate these kids. And I'm going to be learning under Robin Rabitu, who, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the world. Her daughter just won the world championship for ropes last night, and they're very, very, very good at what they do. I'm just excited to learn under her.
And just give us a bit of an insight, because we hear the term climbing coach. Is your role, what's the bulk of your role? I mean, when you coach someone, are you primarily talking about technique, physiology of training?
When you're coaching someone, a lot of it is watching them climb and seeing what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right. If you only tell them what they're doing wrong, then they kind of they don't feel like they're doing they don't feel like they're doing well. But if you praise them while giving them constructive criticism on what they're doing, they feel like they can get better, and they feel like they can fix the things that they're trying to do. And a lot of it is psych. You just need to get them psyched on training and psyched on getting better. And because if you're trying to get them to do things that they may not want to do, like training wise, you have to get them get their energy up to want to get good, and that's the only real way that they will, is that if they want to. You can't force a kid to want something. They have to want it for themselves.
Resume in just a second. I'm just watching Hannah Kudo. This is a pretty good run on this women's lead semi-final in the Youth B here in Moscow. And we're going to see someone have a really good look at this head wall. I haven't seen the head wall really on either the men's or the women's side. Goes out with the right hand, pops up again with the right, and we lose it. Again, just trying to get onto that head wall. But yeah, just going back to the coaching, I've got a really very amateur interest in sports psychology, but I read a lot about it, and I find it a really interesting topic. And interesting what you say, that one of the first things you said was you've got to make them want it.
Oh, 100%.
I interviewed a sports psychologist recently who works with the Scottish rugby union team, and sadly as an Englishman he's doing quite a good job.
Yeah.
And they're doing pretty well now, but he said a lot of people say to him, do you go in and motivate them? And he said, no, they'd laugh at me.
Yeah.
You have to have your own motivation. He said, I don't go in and give Churchillian speeches. You know, I'm not trying to inspire anyone or motivate them. They'd laugh at me. You know, you have to have your own motivation. Same, exactly what you're saying.
I mean, with the kids, especially if they don't do well at a competition, you kind of have to motivate them a little bit and like do those kind of, I wouldn't say inspiration speeches, but just let them know that mistakes happen, and that if they work at it and try to get as strong as they possibly can, then that can change. Like they won't make the same mistake the next time. So when it comes to the older people, like for the rugby team, you wouldn't have to go in and motivate them, because that's their job. They want that. That's the whole point that they're doing it. They love the sport. And it's the same with the kids, but they get a little bit more upset with bad placements and if they're not strong in a certain area.
This is Julia Lotz of Austria. Now that's a really interesting insight, actually, that, yeah, coaching youths is a bit different from coaching adults. That's fascinating. We could maybe geek out on sports psychology. Here's Julia Lotz of Austria, 13th climber out, so we will have the cleaning break on the women's route immediately after this. That was a new high point by one move from Hannah Kudo. She's now on a 26 plus. Indiana Chapman 25 plus.
She just made that move look really easy.
She did, didn't she? Got to try and find some way of getting into something resembling a comfortable position here. Oh, and she was just swapping her hands round, trying to figure out exactly how to launch from there. Let's have a look. Oh, that's such a shame for her. As you said, she looked really strong. So we'll now have the cleaning break. So halfway through the men's and the women's semi-final. Just going back to your new role as a coach in Boulder. As we have a look at the scores, you can see there Hannah Kudo just overtook Indiana Chapman in the provisional lead, 26 plus to Indiana Chapman's 25 plus. Lucy Watillon currently in third. 8 climbers looking to go through on the men's and 8 on the women's. Just going back to your role as a coach, how much do you feel there is progress to be made on the mental side of climbing?
Okay, so
because I have a pet theory that there's a lot of progress to be made.
Yes. So when it comes to climbing, it's 70% mental, 30% physical. A lot of these climbers, if this was a gym route, they could slash it, no problem. But it's a sense of the like staying relaxed on the wall and the being more. Sorry, let me collect my thoughts here a little bit. It's
Sorry, I just throw this question at you, and you've got to answer it live. Yeah, sorry, man.
it's okay. No, climbing when it comes to the mental aspect, it's there's nothing more important in my opinion.
Yeah, I did a really interesting interview as well with a professional skier, and she talked about how you enter flow state,
Yes.
and it was fascinating. I certainly, for me, watching on and thinking about my own climbing, albeit not in a competition setting, but for example, trad climbing, where there's an element of danger and you
Yes.
need to keep your head together. It's the mental game is huge, and it's somewhere I feel like I could make huge improvements.
Yes. When it comes to the whole trad thing, I personally have never trad climbed because I do not think that I would be able to trust my gear and trust my placement. But there's a lot of guys that's all they do, and there's some people that climb 514s while on trad, and that's the craziest thing that I think I have ever heard of in my entire life.
I guess a lot of it depends on where you come from. I mean, I remember when I started climbing, I wasn't aware sport climbing existed.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine said he was going to Spain, and he was saying, yeah, they have bolts in the rock. And I was thinking, oh, God, this sounds great. Sounds so much less scary than what we're doing. But no, I definitely, it seems to me that there's huge gains to be made on the psychological side of climbing.
That is the truest statement I think I've heard anybody say.
It's a bit of an open topic, and I think even in huge sports where there's a lot more budget and time to explore this, they're still finding new psychological ground.
Yes.
And I think if you look at a lot of top sports people, I'm not talking about climbing now, but if you look at the Roger Federers and Tom Brady's and Tiger Woods' of the world, one of their biggest advantages is their mind.
Yep. They've learned how to hone in on that aspect where a lot of other people fall apart.
Well, I read saw a documentary about Tom Brady. By the way, if you don't watch American football and you're wondering what we're talking about, just Google him, okay? But I watched a documentary about Tom Brady, and out of the 576 quarterbacks who've ever been tested for the draft, he's still the 576th in pretty much every physical performance.
Really?
But he's the best
That
of all time. So it just goes to show the power of the mind.
Yep, for sure.
All right, enough philosophizing. Back to climbing. Marek Jeliga of Czech Republic there. Always the way we get a cleaning break and I just kind of go off on a tangent. But
I mean, I think that's the best
well, nobody wants
to do. Exactly.
Nobody wants to commentate the cleaning. So Marek underway now. Yeah, apologies if you've been listening to me all week with various co-commentators. You'll have heard some pretty random conversation. That's for sure. We had a bit of. We were talking about mausoleums the other day, about Lenin. Oh, we've been through all sorts. Now sports psychology, flow state, Tom Brady. You name it.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, exactly. When you see a cleaning break come up, just get ready for something pretty random. Tita Fajvar of Slovenia will be the next climber on the women's route once the route setting team are done, and they're approaching the high point set by Hannah Kudo, so they'll be done pretty soon. Marek, we talked about discrepancy in climbers. He's absolutely one of the smaller climbers out there. He struggled a bit on the boulders earlier in the week. I think just size being a major issue. Had a really unlucky bouldering semi-finalist again, one of those where he got to the end and you kind of felt like he should have a really good score, but he didn't.
I was definitely just thinking that. He's got some good muscle definition, though.
Yeah, he's not short on power.
You kind of can't when you're short on height.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you're missing both, you're probably in a bit of trouble. But he's found his way up to the start of the steep section. He's now on to the quarter star. Just fluff that clip a bit. Really the last thing you need, because it's there's a series of pretty physical moves now on small crimps.
I never understood why these kids grab crimps with 3 fingers.
No, it didn't work that time. No, we've seen it a couple of times where it looks like they haven't quite got it right, but they seem happy with it.
Yeah.
Well, when you're coaching, you'll be able to sort all this out.
Oh, I just can't wait. I want to be the very best that no one ever was, okay? That was a Pokemon reference.
I was just thinking there, yeah. Think that makes sense. So we're underway again on the women's route into the second half of both the men's and the women's semi-final. We've been going just under an hour, so things moving along pretty quickly here. 26 climbers in total. Should get very interesting as this semi-final progresses. See if anyone can make a dent in the head wall. We often see it in the lead World Cups where climbers are repeatedly falling and you think, oh, the route setter's overcooked it, and then as we get deeper and deeper into the semi-final, people just begin to creep past the high point, and the high point gradually gets pushed higher and higher up the wall. Then Janja Garnbret comes and tops it. That's normally the way the lead semi-final goes. Ellis Ernstberger now of the USA. This is where we lost Marek.
He is a beast. He's very good at speed as well.
Yeah, he is pretty handy on the speed wall.
With the second place finish? Or was it third?
Good question. I'll go back and check. We've had, I think this is live stream number 17, so apologies.
Okay.
I can't recall all the... I've normally got a pretty good memory for results.
Yep, third place.
It's easy now. Heading up towards a golf ball. Yeah, Ellis already claimed himself a bronze medal speed climbing. Now has a go on the lead. And we couldn't really have a more perfect example of the difference in shapes and sizes. Him and Marek, vastly different body shape and height.
Yeah, I was talking to his brother, and he just in this past year grew a whole bunch in muscle and height.
Oh, you've got to hate that if that's your brother.
Yep.
That shifts the family dynamic when you're having fights and stuff.
Yeah, his brother's a junior, and he's out climbing him.
We just saw Letitia just trying to figure out what to do with her feet, I think.
I like that bow.
Very fetching, yeah. Thomas Podland's been wearing one on the men's side, and he'll be coming out later.
Yeah, I saw him wearing it, and I wanted one. So I actually wore it for the semis, but my hair's so big that you couldn't see it.
I actually have to say, yeah, I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
So, man, you make your fashion statement. We didn't realise. So we've lost Ellis. I'm just looking at where the quick draws are swinging. It would look as if he was getting close to the head wall. Here he goes. And this is pretty close to the high point. This move out to the right, super physical. Both shoulders extended really uncomfortably. And you just couldn't quite get that left hand to sit. Elena Masiak-Iabluchkina of Russia. Now, T.S. van Crenest of Belgium. Again, Belgium, well, Flemish, one of those languages that's pretty hard to pronounce, so
Yeah.
apologies again. I do get coaching on the majority of names, but there's an awful lot of names in this Youth World Championship, so apologies, but I think I'm pretty close from what I was told. Here goes Elena. She's on to the start. And there's TS. Elliot Barnaby of France will be next out on the men's route. And on the women's side, Elena Matiak-Iabluchkina currently climbing. Jimin Jeong, the speed climbing champion, will be out next on the women's route.
The men's route is very shouldery throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it is actually. It seems to be quite a common theme. A lot of those moves through the star, as you say, kind of you're slapping out, and your arms are hands end up being a long way apart.
And that really takes a toll on the upper part of the route. Your shoulders get very tired very quickly.
She's trying to figure out how to move off the golf ball. You've got to be really careful here. If either of your feet pop, land you in all sorts of trouble. And her feet pop there, and just pure power, I think, kept her on the wall. But a couple of messy moves leading up to that, and she suddenly started losing energy pretty quickly.
Yeah, she put her heel on that no-shadow jib, and she definitely should have used a toe because it just kept popping.
Yeah, she tried to put it back as a heel, as you say. So it popped once, tried it again, popped a second time. TS now. And just about to exit the top of the start. And frustration again. We seem to have said it about the majority of climbers. Just looking at Elena with her heel hook pop in there, it must be not frustrating as a coach, but because there's an unlimited amount of moves you could do as a climber, do you find it hard to give people, as we see T's, just a replay of where we lost him, just exiting the star, slapped up and just missed it? Do you find it frustrating or difficult to give climbers kind of a set of rules because there's so many infinite ways of doing every move?
My coach, when I was younger, he said to me and to the rest of my climbing team, if you're strong enough and your feet pop, you can put your feet back on and keep going. And he kind of expected us to learn footwork as we went. But when I started actually like learning footwork and learning heel hooks and learning all of the other aspects of using your feet and keeping your feet on, becoming you can climb like a letter or two grades harder without gaining any physical abilities. So you really just have to trust the climber to have the correct instincts by giving them the best fundamental like base that you can.
So it's a series of fundamentals of theories, if you like. Okay. Trying to get a few tips for myself. Jimin Jeong now, the South Korean speed champion, claimed South Korea's first ever speed climbing gold medal, and then about 90 seconds later they got their second. got the World Championships off to a bang. She's seems to have found a pretty comfortable position. Perhaps, yeah, I was about to say go up with the left hand might be better. But she found a nice comfy position to chalk up from the golf ball. And really having to work hard now. But solid with the right hand. Chooses to clip from what's a pretty poor hold, although it's probably the best one in that area.
Well, she got that toe hook, so it put all the weight onto her hand and kept her body into the wall.
And that's unfortunate. Elliot Barnaby just fell entering the steep section of the wall. Let's stick with Jimin Jeong because she seems to be going really well on this women's route. She's climbed pretty efficiently and just slapped up with the right hand, and again it's getting on to the head wall that is proving so problematic. Here we see it. She was going really well up into this stage, got the clip done. Just perhaps didn't quite make a decision what to do with her feet there, and was quite a way off the hold. Conor Herson of the USA now heading up to try his luck. We're really getting towards the stage in the semi-final where we'll know some of our finalists. So Conor, the 18th climber out over on the women's side. It's 17th climbers about to head out. Angie Scarth Johnson of Australia.
Yeah, he's one of the smaller climbers, but he is super strong. He actually won the national championship for his category in youth.
That's some pedigree when you look at the calibre of climbers we've got here.
Yes. He's such a sweet kid, too.
So both climbers still quite low down on the wall. Women on the right, men on the left. If you're just joining us, welcome to Moscow. Bobby Taft-Pittman and Charlie Bosco here. And as ever, you can get in touch on Twitter, hashtag IFSCYWCH. Let us know what you think. We're really entering the business end of this semi-final. The men's going by slightly faster than the women's, but even so, still quicker than, I would say, than an average lead semi-final in the World Cup. Climbers struggling to get onto the upper third of the routes.
The Australians have been getting a lot stronger.
Yeah, they got some very promising youth climbers, most notably Oceana McKenzie, but Angie's been looking pretty handy as well. Had an excellent day in the qualifiers. Just needs to find a way of getting through these moves around the start so that she can arrive on the steepest section of the wall with a bit of gas left. She doesn't seem to want to put her foot out to the left. Now she will. And now she's onto the shiny brand new orange volumes that mark the exit from the star. Here's Conor. We must be 50 metres away from the wall and we've got headsets in on. I can hear Team USA offering encouragement.
I can hear my mom.
Here goes Conor. Onto the bullet-shaped volume. Is he going to try and cross through or slap down with the left? Or slap down with the left. Cut back to Angie now. Working her way out towards the golf ball. So both climbers on crucial sections of their route. Connor able to take a rest here.
He's very good at finding rests in the most inopportune places.
That's a classic example of it. Got that pinch with the left hand, with the right, now with the left. Beginning to bump it up. The head wall beckons. You can see he's getting tired. Movement's just becoming that bit more jerky. And it was a slap through with the left where we lost him. Let's see where that leaves him score-wise. Did well to hang on to that move. Looked like he was at the limit.
Yeah, he needed to reel it in a little bit more with that right hand to get enough length to slap that left.
And we've also just lost Angie. 21 for her. She's down in 7th place as it stands. Jonas Utelli of Switzerland next. This was Angie. And had to down climb that move, get herself set, and then just fell in the process of coming back down. Joelle Niederberger of Switzerland and her compatriot Jonas Utelli on the wall. You can see there Jimin Jeong, the speed climbing champion, matched the high point of Hanakuda and count back to the previous round. The qualifiers means that she is in first place. Indiana Chapman set a very early high point of 25 plus. Still in third. It's going to be pretty touch and go for Indiana. Here is Jonas. Now, Jonas actually the 8th to last climber out, so after him we will know our first definite finalist. This is Joelle Niederberger, Swiss climber.
She's climbing fairly slowly, and this is definitely a route where you should pick up the pace a little bit.
Really tricky time, especially after the rules changed from 8 minutes to 6. It seems to be mentioned an awful lot in lead climbing, but I've heard it said that it's unfair if you have a slow climbing style, but really the ability to climb quicker or slower is a skill of a climber.
Yes, you need to be able to climb fast through hard sections, because if you climb slow, no matter how much endurance you have, you're gonna lose power. You're gonna lose a little bit on each movement and for every second that you're on the wall. So the faster you climb, the less time you're on the wall, the less pumped you get in theory. I mean, stopping to rest is pretty important if you can find a good one, but if not, you need to get out of there. So strong.
Yeah, it's looking pretty solid up until this stage. Giorgio Tomatis, Kentaro Maeda, Ryoe Nakui, Xander Waller, Colin Duffy, Paul Gemt and Thomas Podlan still to come on the men's route, but this is Jonas Utelli, and as we saw with Connor, really beginning to work. You hit this head wall and suddenly fatigue kicks in. Yeah, you get a slight change of angle, but the moves don't ease up at all. And by the standards of what has been a very hard semi-final route for the men, and the women's has been equally tough, that is a very, very good effort. So Joelle Niederberger now finds herself alone on the Moscow wall, about to be joined by Kentaro Maeda of Japan. Team Japan just seems to have been collecting medals left, right and centre, particularly in the bouldering.
She seems like she's fighting.
Yes, she really is scrapping through that steep section. That's 29 plus from Jonas Utelli, who we've just seen. I think that'll likely be enough for a place in the final. Victor Bouldering, of Canada, has got the high point, and he's going to make it into the final because we've only got 7 climbers to go, so the worst he can finish is 8th. So congratulations to him, he's through. Giorgio Tomatis now onto the wall. Genevieve Dennis of the USA, next climber out on the women's route. Here is Giorgio. So Genevieve Dennis, the 8th to last climber out. So again, we'll also be able to confirm who our first known finalist is after she's climbed. Giorgio, no problems so far through the lower section. It's convoluted. It's not really hard. It's just a bit complicated and convoluted, and you've just got to move through it efficiently. The key is to emerge from this section with as much gas left as you can. You can see there, Bobby mentioned it earlier, those pink crimps, purple crimps, just blocked by little black blocker holes, so you can't quite get them in exactly the position you'd like to.
I think it's really funny that Ashima, who's still considered a youth climber, has her own shoe, and there's girls that even in nationals that she was competing against that were wearing her shoe.
That's when you know you've made it.
Yep.
Genevieve just needs to get established on these crimps, or we could low down if she doesn't find a way to move up onto them comfortably, and then she'll move out left and she's onto the first of the really big orange volumes. Giorgio now with that big pinch out to the left. Kind of the last thing you want to see after a really pumpy section is a big pinch like that. But you've got to take it, and you've got to slap up then with your right hand. And again, he's just trying to get over the lip. Be interesting to see. I wonder if the route setters might feel they need to tone down the difficulty of the finals from what they've seen today.
I think that's definitely a possibility. I think there was just that one move going out from when you make that little iron cross move and then you make the cross after that. If those holds were any better, a lot of those kids would have gotten through that. It was just the way that it all played out that I think that the holds should just be a tiny bit better. But if they were, then a lot of people would top. So there's a fine line, and it's really hard to gauge how these climbers are going to do.
Here's Genevieve Dennis. Just had a bit of a messy couple of moves getting onto the star, but seems to be established now. Just slapping slightly. Now she's got the move out to the big golf ball. Hasn't quite got comfortable on this big volume. And she falls just before attempting that move out to the left. That's disappointing for her after a good qualifying round.
Like I said, you kind of got to climb quickly, because you can definitely tell that she was already getting tired by this point, and I think that's because she spent a lot of time trying to figure out that bottom section, and if she had figured out the bottom section a little bit faster, she easily could have made that move.
Here's Kentaro Maeda of Japan. Again, in the pretty complicated but not especially difficult lower section of the men's route. My imagine of Slovenia climbing next. Kentaro made a 5th for him in the bouldering final a couple of days ago. Just on those blocked crimps, the purple holes with the black blockers.
The setters have gotten very crafty with those blocker holds.
Yeah, it seems to have been quite a feature of this Youth World Championships. Your blockers.
It makes good holds bad and bad holds worse.
Kentaro Maeda entering the star. Just the quarter start for the men on their route, and the women climb right up through the middle of the massive star that's made up of 5 volumes. There it is. Maya, we've only just cut to her, but looks like she's got a bit of a battle already. Let's hopefully stay with Kentaro. Really getting to the stage now where I'm beginning to wonder if we're going to see a climber find a way onto the head wall. Everyone just seems to get tired. Everyone that gets through this star then seems to get tired kind of at the same point.
Yeah. It's not easy at all. I think that a lot of the juniors would have problems with this. And these are B climbers.
Suddenly Kentaro finds himself in a pretty good position now. If he can pop out right, he really could be going somewhere. But again, it's that move that slap out to the right where your shoulders just end up too far apart that proved a bit too much. Let's have another look.
I definitely think he should have closed that crimp on the right hand and thumb stacked. Because when you're open crimping on a kind of a small slopey crimp, it tends to just pop, especially when you're pumped. But if you close it up, it kind of locks it in.
It's such micro details, and that's one of the interesting things about watching lead climbing. You've got to get them all right.
Yep. With boulders, you have another shot, but with lead, you only got one.
And that's why people that are consistent at lead climbing are so impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're consistently making finals, you basically aren't making mistakes.
Yeah, no.
It's amazing to see.
Or you're making them very high on the route.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and that again is frustrating for Maya. How many climbers have we seen coming down, kicking with frustration and aggressively untying their knot? Like they're really not happy with what's gone on the wall.
She just got a little twisted up after that heel came off.
Ryaway Nakui now, the bronze medalist from the bouldering. We've already seen the gold medalist from the bouldering, Ray Kawamata. Ray almost certainly not done enough. He's currently sitting in 8th place as it stands. So Ryaway Nakui, the 5th to last climber out. That means our top 3, Kentaro Maeda, Victor Bouderond and Jonas Utelli of Switzerland, all know that they'll be climbing in the final at 3 p.m. today. Over on the women's side, we've got 6 climbers left. So Xiumin Jiong and Hannah Kudo both know that they'll be in the final. 6 places still up for grabs. Indiana Chapman currently sitting in 3rd. I'm still inclined to say that's probably going to be enough, but we shall see. Ryaway Nakui now. We'll be going into the Youth A next year. This is last year in Youth B. He'll be followed out by Xander Waller, Colin Duffy, Paul Gemt and Thomas Podlan.
The Japan jerseys are so cool.
They're nice, hey?
Yeah.
Their kit is really nice. I'd really like one of their team jackets. Have to try next time we're in Tokyo.
I've tried and failed.
And sadly, the same is true of Raiwe Nakui. Absolutely fuming with himself. He was gunning for the opportunity to get a second medal, and that's not going to be enough, I think. See Tarkus of Slovenia climbing now. Nora Chi, Nika Potapova, Luce Duardi, Natsuki Tani and Yutong Tsang. The climbers still to come on the women's route. And struggling to get their knot undone. Pretty fed up with that performance, I think, Raiwe Nakui. Let's see where that leaves him. His score not come through just yet. He's in 12th place, so nowhere near enough. 24 plus for him, 30 plus from Kentaro Maeda. Still the high point. This is what a 24 plus looks like.
He definitely should have got that left heel on.
Yes, that was hole 25 he was going up for. Xander Waller now. Who's to see it? Xander Waller, a climber you know pretty well.
Yes. Very, very, very well. I've climbed with Xander since I was in C. I live in Florida and he lives in Georgia, and they're right over top of each other. And he used to be super small, but he shot up in height and power, as you can tell. The amount of training that he puts in, he lost a lot of weight, started working super hard on his endurance, so he started running a lot. He's just overall becoming kind of a freak in the sense of just being really strong.
See it, Tarkus. I think that was a pretty low fall, just judging by how she swung in towards the wall. I know, she was above the golf ball. Let's have a look. Was it this move up with the right hand? She tried to skip it out altogether. It seemed a pretty effective method, actually. Looked like it could be possible that way.
100%. She needed to get that clip beforehand, though.
So here's Xander Waller, fourth to last climber on the men's route. That means that Ellis Ernstberger is going to be in the final.
That makes me happy.
What's Xander got here? Looks like he's got a bit more left than some of the climbers we've seen get here, but he's definitely getting tired. Chalk up. It's not really a rest, it's more of a chalking point. You'd struggle to describe that as a rest, but he just managed to find a way to pause, and Nora Chi now is climbing on the women's route.
All USA, all the time.
Here's Nora Chi. Hopefully we can go back to see Xander Waller on the men's route. Now this is where we lost Xander Waller.
Oh, so he's definitely in.
He's definitely in the final, yeah. That's a new high point, 31 plus.
Allez-y.
Nora Chi now, fifth to last climber in the women's semi-final. All of which means that Indiana Chapman has done enough and will climb in the final tonight. Xander Waller, you can see there, just set a new high point. So he's going to not only go into the final, but go into the final in the top half of the order. Excellent day's work for him. Canada got 2 confirmed finalists already. Victor Baudrond, will be through. Nora Chi now cutting loose and does well to get her feet back on. A few climbers have lost their feet at that stage and not been able to recover. Here's Colin Duffy.
Collins from Boulder as well.
Not a bad place to be from.
Not at all.
Hopefully we can see Nora Chi on the women's route. She was getting pretty high. There's a lot of cheers I can still hear for her. All USA on the wall again. Colin Duffy underway. As I say, hopefully we can see Nora Chi. Now we just cut back a bit too late. So she was very high on the route. Just trying to identify where that is. She's just about to enter the head wall there. That's enough for third place. That's a 25 plus for her. That is enough to get her through to the final. So good job from Nora Chi.
Nice, Nora. This is her first Worlds. I'm pretty sure she's first year.
She is, yes. Born in 2004. So she's in the younger half of the Youth B category. Colin Duffy is in the elder half. What a performance from him in Innsbruck last year.
Yes, that was incredible. We were all freaking out. And he has pushed so hard. And he's a product of Robin Eversfield. And it's just the amount of time and effort that he puts in when it comes to training, because ABC's it's a boulder gym. It's not very tall.
This is the gym he trains at in Boulder.
Yes.
No, he's one of the most fun people to follow on social media as well.
Yeah.
Puts a lot of videos of his training on. Worth checking out. Colin Duffy now up to the big pinch. Countbacks can be so crucial in league climbing, so although he's getting himself pretty close to securing a place in the final, he'd be well advised to get as high as he possibly can on the route.
As you can see there, Colin's definitely one of the shorter climbers.
He is, but he's climbed that section really intelligently, and he's seems like he's got quite a bit of juice left. Now crossing through and up with the right hand, Colin Duffy.
Nice, Colin.
Setting a new high point and looking like he's got a bit left. This is brilliant stuff from Colin Duffy. He'll have climbed his way into the final, we know that. Can he find a top? First things first. He's clipped the penultimate quick draw though. All that's left is to clip the top one. There's another triangular volume just like that one. Right above it, there it is, and now he's got to move out left. This is a really awkward, balancy move, and then the top hole beckons. So Colin Duffy, perhaps lining it up. He's got the top hold in sight. He's got it in his hands. Colin Duffy, the first climber really to get onto the head wall of this Youth B semi-final route here in Moscow, and he's only gone and topped it. I'd have to say, never really looked especially taxed.
No, he has reserves for days, and he's very good at finding rests. That's one thing that he's very good at doing. He's good at, like you said, the whole mental game. He's great at keeping calm and keeping it together.
Colin Duffy, that is an absolutely brilliant performance. I mentioned it earlier. He gave us one of the moments of the Innsbruck Youth World Championships. He's given us undoubtedly the moment so far of this Youth B semi-final here in Moscow. So the men's route has been topped. Nika Potapova of Ukraine is climbing on the women's route. And yeah, Colin Duffy topping a route that I have to say has looked perhaps overcooked. It
Yeah.
looked undercooked for him.
Yeah. He was really close to making finals in the bouldering.
Yeah, he was 7th, wasn't he?
Yes. And no, he was 8th.
8th.
Xander Waller was
That was it, yeah.
7th.
USA nearly had 3 men into that final.
Yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was height oriented. And he's just not a very tall individual.
So I'm pretty sure that'll be enough for a place in the final from Nika Potapova. As we see Paul Jempt make his way onto the wall now. Yeah, I'm assuming Nika Potapova is going pretty well. Hopefully we can see her on the women's route. And there she is lowering down. We keep coming back 5 seconds too late.
Oh, she got far.
Yeah, this was up onto the head wall. You can see her shaking out. Well, that'll be enough for a new high point and a very good final place. 28 plus hit it for her. 2 moves clear of Jimin Jong, who was holding the high point of 26 plus, and it's already coming up. Colin Duffy there, you can see top USA 1 and 2. Also got Nora Chi into the final, so they've converted your compatriots. There's Ellis Ernstberger as well. Yeah, guaranteed his place, no matter what Paul Jemf does. So USA converting an excellent qualifier into a perhaps even better semi-final. Tanner Bauer got a bit of an anxious wait.
Connor Hurson's just out. Depending on how he does.
Now, Paul, one of the taller climbers out there, 4th in the bouldering earlier in the week. Looking pretty solid. And definitely into the final. That's more than enough. But we've seen this route top now. Colin Duffy topped it. Paul Jemp now gunning to join him. Luce Duardi, his compatriot, has just started out on the women's route. So our last climber coming out on the men's semi-final route. I think this must be some sort of a record for a lead semi-final. We had a lot of climbers falling relatively low down or around mid-height on the route. And it's meant that already, it's not even 10 to 11 here in Moscow, Thomas Podlan is going to be climbing. He's our last climber out.
Well, this wall is fairly short. And fairly stiff as well.
Yeah, they've been tough routes. Luce Diardi, the 3rd to last climber out, Natsuki Tani and Yutong Tsang still to come. Speaking of China, we'll be back there in October for 2 more lead World Cups and speed World Cups. Still an awful lot to come from this IFSC season. We're in Munich next week. We've got the Innsbruck World Championships coming up. We're going to Slovenia for a Kranj. So don't despair that the Moscow event is over. We've got plenty more for you. Despair in October when the season's over, but not now. So Luce Duardi, 24th climber in today's semi-final, had a really good day yesterday in the qualifiers. 1 top for her, and she was ranked 6th on the other one with a 30 plus. Thomas Podlan now, he got 2 tops in the qualifying round. Interestingly enough, the 3 climbers who got 2 tops yesterday in the qualifiers, who've already climbed in the semi-final, Colin Duffy, Paul Jempt and Xander Waller, are the current top 3 in the semi-final as well. So form in the qualifying round transferring to the semi-finals, it would seem, particularly on the men's side, and Luce Duardi fighting hard and doing enough for a place in the finals. Of that, I'm sure. Can we see a new high point? She will equal the current high point, and she's climbed her way into the finals. This was her on the golf balls. The golf balls.
That was really impressive the way that she stuck that.
Yeah, they're tiny holes. You're pretty pumped by the time you get to them. So Natsuki Tani and Yutong Tsang, the two climbers left, aiming to find a top on this women's route. Thomas Podland, silver in the bouldering with his Austrian hair clip. The route has been topped. God, I'm looking forward to getting Colin Duffy at some Senior World Cups. Every time we see him on the live stream, he produces something incredible.
He's really fast in speed as well for his height. And the beta that he uses is absolutely incredible.
So Thomas Podlam in this star section, which has caused quite a few problems. None of the moves are especially hard, provided you read them right, but they're all pretty taxing. He seems to have found a pretty efficient way of doing things so far.
He seems like he's climbing kind of shaky a little bit. Not shaky, but just tight. He doesn't seem fully relaxed.
Let's see if it's just his leading style. I know what you mean. It definitely looks like he's got some energy left.
Seems like he's making it work.
For Thomas Podland, it all gets pretty tight around here in terms of score. God, he did well there once his feet popped, but that'll be enough for a place in the final for him. Especially now he's got that red volume. So Thomas Podland really now just hunting down Colin Duffy's high point, which was the top of the route, and he's not going to find it. So Thomas Podland definitely done enough to make his way into the final. I think that'll put him in second place, just ahead of Paul Gemt. It'll be pretty tight between the two. Either way, it'll go through in the top three. Thomas Podland, same score as Paul Gemt, so they'll be actually tied going into the final because they both topped both the qualifying routes, and then they both got a 33 plus on this semi-final route. So it's going to be pretty tight in the final later on, but no doubt who the standout performer was on the men's side today. Nobody else got past hold 33 plus. Colin Duffy strolled to the top of the route. It looked like he could have quite easily done another 5 or 6 meters of climbing.
Oh, with no problem.
So we're watching Natsuki Tani now, the bouldering champion in the Youth B. Her compatriot Ai Mori we would have expected to be climbing in this semi-final, but she was taken ill after the bouldering qualifiers and she's gone back to Japan. Had a pretty violent sickness bug, I'm told. She would have provided some pretty stiff competition for these climbers, including Natsuki Tani, but sadly, as I say, she's back in Japan. But Natsuki Tani is doing pretty well herself and setting a new high point, and this is the first climber we've seen up until this stage, up to this point on the route. Once she gets that quick draw clip, the next one is the top, and a bit like we saw with Colin Duffy, looks like she's got plenty left.
She is looking super smooth right now.
You can see the expression on her face, more concentration than fatigue. It's quite a long run out to the top actually on the women's route. You've got to kind of keep on motoring up to the right, and there's no more quick draws left.
And as you can see, those holds are in cut, but they're not the best, especially when you're pumped.
You wouldn't know it from looking at her. Now this big round orange hole just above, we've seen this on some of the boulders earlier in the week. It's reasonably good in the middle, but really the best way to hold it is to get the top. And you can see there Natsuki Tani, she slapped and she got the inside part of it, which is, it's okay if you're directly underneath it, but from side on like that, it's really hard to hang on to. You really need to bump up and then get on top of it. But comfortably the highest point anyone's reached on the women's route so far, and Yutong Tsang of China is the last climber to come. So that means that in the women's side, the top 7 already know that they'll be climbing at 3 p.m. today here on the Moscow Wall. That's Natsuki Tani, Luce Duardi, Nika Potapova, Jimin Cheong, Hannah Kudo, Nora Chi, and Indiana Chapman. There you top 7. Lucia Tarkus of Slovenia currently in 8th. She'll be watching somewhere down there in the crowd. You can see one of the distinctive green t-shirts of Team Slovenia. So final climber out in the semi-final, all concluded in about an hour and 45 minutes. Incredibly quick semi-final. We've got plenty more climbing coming up today though. These climbers will have their final at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Over on the men's side, 3 American climbers through to the final. Colin Duffy, Xander Waller and Ellis Ernstberger. They'll be joined by Paul Jemz, Thomas Podolán, Kentaro Maeda, Victor Baudrond of Canada and Jonas Utelli of Switzerland. Good day for the US.
Very good day for the US. That brings music to my ears.
The president said you'd get tired of winning, but you know it doesn't seem to be the case.
Nope, I don't think you do, especially not at a competition of this magnitude. This is what we look forward to every single year. This is what we work towards.
Well, whatever you're doing right. Seems to be working really well. 3 men through to the final. And over on the women's side, Nora Chi as well. So 4 Americans through across the 16. Nora Chi currently sitting in 6th place, depending on how this climber, Yutong Tsang, gets on. She could get bumped down to 7th, but either way, she'll be through. And Natsuki Tani really setting the standard here in the Moscow Youth B Leads semi-final. Our second to last piece of action we've got for you. But as I say, tune in at 3 p.m. today. What day of the week is it? I've lost track. Thursday. So I guess a lot of people in Europe will be at work. So perhaps put it on in the background at work and pretend to work and actually watch our coverage. The finals will be running concurrently in the IFSC Lead World Cups. Normally we have the women followed by the men or vice versa, but here in the Youth World Championships, primarily due to scheduling issues earlier in the week, we've got the finals running concurrently. So the finals don't last long. They've been lasting about 45 minutes. So don't be late. I should be with you around 3 o'clock. Chinese climber, the last one to go, our only Chinese climber in the semi-final, and she's out last. In the qualifiers, she topped both routes, as did Natsuki Tani, so it would be good if possible to separate the climbers. Always seems a shame when it comes down to time in a lead final. It's nice if we can have some separation at some stage of the competition. She's got to get there first though. Yutong Tsang, she's looking very solid up until here. These moves have caught quite a few climbers out though.
She's doing fairly well keeping her hips into the wall, which is very important, especially on an overhang as high of a degree as this.
Yeah, she is climbing pretty nicely. She took 5th in the bouldering. Wasn't too far off a medal, despite coming in 5th place. She it was pretty tight, that final. And I think she's getting pretty close now. I'm just looking at the scores. Indiana Chapman got a 25 plus, so if she can match that, then she's safely into the final. to say, it was that long ago. I can't remember exactly which hole 25 is,
Yeah.
but it was somewhere in this region. If she can get up to those next orange holes, which she can, that'll be enough. See across the top of your screen there, Natsuki Tani leading the way with a 33 plus. That was basically slapping up for the big round orange hold just below the top.
I think 25 is the one that she has her left foot on.
Okay, either way, she's well clear. We know that.
Oh.
We just lose her. She just looked like the left hand went first. We'll try and get a replay for you.
I think her right hand dry fired.
We'll see either way. Won't matter too much other than for countback. We seem to say a lot how important countback is, but it really is, particularly in lead climbing, and Natsuki Tani is going to go into the final with a very clear advantage, top both the qualifying routes, and she's found the high point in the semi-final. So this was a bit lower down. This was her just exiting the or entering the big star. And we're just waiting for her confirmed score to come through. We know she'll be in second. She is 30, that was. So yeah, I think you're right, that left hand, the 25 hold. So this is where we lost her. Watch closely. You're absolutely right. Right hand went first. So we'll have confirmed results for you in just a second. And there we have it. Good day for the men in the US. Colin Duffy, Paul Gemp, Thomas Podland, Xander Waller, Kentaro Maeda, Victor Bodrond, Jonas Utelli and Ellis Ernstberger all safely through. Tanner Bauer in 10th place. Could have been 4 men. Half the final could have been American, but as it is, they'll have to settle with a mere 3 out of 8. Not a bad day at the office. Ditto Connor Herson, not too far off. So top half finishes for all the American men. Raiway Nakui down in 16th place. Jumps out as a man that might have hoped for a bit better. Ditto his compatriot Ray Kawamata, but they haven't made it through to the final. And rounding out the 26th, Evgeny Kuzin down in 26th. He sadly slipped very low down on the route, hence his 5 plus. And over on the women's side, Natsuki Tani, the champion from the bouldering, looks the favourite in the lead as well. She'll be joined in the final by Yutong Tsang, Luce Duardi, Nika Potapova, Jimin Jeong, Hannah Kudo, Nora Chi and Indiana Chapman. Indiana Chapman set that high point. She climbed 8th. And I thought at the time, given how tough the route looked, that it might be enough, and so it proved. She goes through in 8th place. Nai Mignon, again, one of the names that jumps out down in that lower order. 16th for her. Not enough. Elena Matiak, Ia Bluchkina cannot follow up her place in the bouldering finals as well with a place in the lead final. And there we can see, rounding out the order, Nikola Kralikova, 13 plus the lowest score on the women's route. It was a tough women's route. Well, there we have it. A very quick but very entertaining Youth B semi-final. Bobby, thank you very much for your time. I know you'll be down the wall later and you've got plenty of people to cheer on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching at home. We will see you in 4 hours' time, 3 p.m. local time in Moscow. Don't be late. Final broadcast of the week promises to deliver fireworks. We'll see you then.